This is Joycey
and Blake,
and welcome to
Savagely Scaled.
In this episode, we will be talking about the amazing Lazar Dukic and his legacy in CrossFit, but we will also be providing a review and recap of the CrossFit Games so far. So let's get into it. In
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The word of the day is muscle up, a challenging movement that combines a pull up directly followed by a dip. There are variations such as bar or a ring muscle up.
I can't.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm like, story of my life.
Well, like in the beginning, it was like, no, I'll do those two. And then I was like, oh, no.
An inside look in the life of Joyce and Blake as they prepare for podcast recording. It speaks to the vibe too, I think.
Yeah.
We're all feeling.
I might cry. So
it's okay.
All right. So the first thing that we wanted to go over is Lazar Dukic and kind of go into who he was and what he stood for.
Yeah, his legacy pretty much. Yeah.
Right. So Lazar is a Serbian native. He was 28 years old. He was known for his kindness, his humor, and his supportive nature. The community of CrossFit is absolutely heartbroken and still processing all that happened, the start of the games. Before we speak to what happened, we want to take a second to learn more about Lazar and his legacy. So Dukic is, I like how you put is.
I know.
I'm going to cry.
Because he still is, yeah.
The third-ranked CrossFit athlete in Serbia and the 88th worldwide. Lazar debuted at the CrossFit Games in 2021 after playing water polo for years in Serbia. He decided to join this awesome CrossFit community.
Yeah, he mentioned, I think I read somewhere that his friend was the one who kind of introduced him to CrossFit, and he was like, the rest was history.
Yeah. So he later introduced then his brother Luca to CrossFit, and the two were competing together this year
for the first time. I think, right?
Yeah, it was the first time. And he had said in past excerpts about his brother was his pusher because he had to beat his brother. So it's like that.
You gotta love that.
That sibling rivalry is just unbelievable.
It's just so cute too, though, because you see all the pictures of Lazar, pretty much putting his arm over him, I'm your mentor, and it's so cute when you see all the pictures out there and all the hugging videos, and you could just see the aura he had, the influence he had on people, and just the feeling of comfort. And
well, he would give them advice and just be like that, because one of his sayings was, "Train hard and you will compete." So it's that whole
we got this, we can do it.
But it was also that he was very warm and supportive, but he had a very quick wit about him. So it was he was there for you, but he also was had those little zings to give
those Blake moments.
Yeah. So on Thursday, August 8th, during the first event of the CrossFit Games in Fort Worth, Texas, in the Marine Creek Reservoir, Lazar drowned. Dukic was known for his kindness, humor, and supportive nature, as we've said. His warmth and his quick wit left a lasting impression on everyone he met. We are deeply saddened and overwhelmed by this loss, as the community is, and our hearts go out to the athletes, family, friends, and the entire CrossFit community. If you wish to contribute to the family during this time, you can donate to their GoFundMe organized by the Fit Aid family. So we will have that link in our show notes. We will also post it on Instagram and our TikTok as well. And I know that I'll be donating. So we'll have our Savagely Scaled out there to help the family. But Joyce is going to go into what the first event was.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about it. Mind you, it's not available or broadcasted anymore on YouTube. So you most likely won't be able to see this event online, as it has been removed as a result of the event that happened. But let's get into day one and what that looked like. So on Thursday, August 8th was day one of the CrossFit Games 2024. This event one is called Lake Day, and it is a 4-time event, and it started with a 3.5 mile run and proceeded with an 800 meter swim. And this event, I think, started bright and early in the morning. And of course, after all of the athletes started getting into the swim, was when the incident occurred. Obviously, the games were stopped after it was found that Dukic was missing. After some time and after the event was kind of going on, unfortunately, search and rescue was called around 8 a.m. when the event started at 7 a.m. So it was a good hour after the event start. The fire department did use dive teams and drones to locate the body in the water, which was found about 3 hours after the start of the event. Dukic was declared dead at the scene. And per the Fort Worth Fire Department, the CrossFit Games, did have its own safety plan in place for the competition, hence why the emergency crew had not been on site on Thursday morning until they were called. So this was a reason why, a lot of the delays happened as to why, Fort Worth Police Department wasn't there as quickly as they could have been. There is no final determination on the cause and manner of death as of yet. But after the happening or the occurrence of this event, the remaining events for the games were canceled that Thursday. So only event one ever occurred that day. And of course, after that event, it was shut down. But there was so many logistics, I would say, that came with the cancellation of the events that day. And maybe Blake could go into it a little bit more, but there's a lot. So let's dive in.
There is a lot. The first thing that I do want to touch on is Lazar's brother, Luca. He did put, I know a lot of people put things out on social media and things like that. And his biggest thing, right now, is the speculation of things. I think because, when with social media, how things can just
get lost,
skyrocket
in translation.
And they are doing their own investigation as well of what could have been done. I do feel, and this doesn't have to be anybody else's feelings, I do feel like something could have been done differently with the athletes' safety, especially with water. With water overheating, I'm there has to be more done, or more people on
patrol, on watch.
On watch for these people, especially when you have so many in one action. So that was the biggest thing. He did put out his own statement as well, which I'll read. It was, "No tribute will ever give you back to me. This is something that could have been prevented, and there is no way of going around it. However, I have huge respect for every athlete, no matter of how they decided to deal with this situation. If something, we knew what it takes to be on the floor. Maybe there will be some time in the future where I will be able to share more. For now, this is everything I will share on this matter. My brother, you touched more lives than you know, and you will forever live. You will live forever." And they did do a tribute. But leading up to when they were, when they had canceled, Dave Castro did speak to this, of what he did, or what, I guess, their internal
precautions for everything.
Yeah. Group did. So like Joyce said, they canceled for the day. Then the internal workings, or the internal group of CrossFit, had a talk,
a press conference, right? I think.
And they were oh, do we celebrate? How do we honor? They did talk to the family, and they talked to Luca. And Luca did give his blessings. If the games
continue, right?
Yeah, that the games, if they were going to continue, that he'd be okay. In that sense that they continued. He wasn't going to be okay, of course, because he just lost his brother. And when I was hearing this, this was such a short amount of time to
make such a decision.
Yeah, such a huge decision. So they did bring the athletes and the coaches in. And they had them come into the arena, and they were talking to them, and it was just more of people talking over each other, people having their own views, which were allowed. We all grieve differently. We all have our emotions. One day they might not hit, the next day they might hit. Or even 1 hour they might not hit, the next hour you're not okay. So then they broke into small groups. So they had individual men, individual women, teams, and then coaches had their own. And there was a little bit better like resolve and talking, but you still had people get very heated, and it was just not they weren't hearing each other out, because we're all human, and what my views are sometimes different from Joyce's views. And sometimes when we get into that, it could be very, I need you to see my point of view. Or if you do that, that's, you know, horrible to do during this time of everybody grieving. So even with that, some were not allowed to talk, and they felt scared to put their input and voices in. So they reached out to Dave also, like, hey, like in that small group, we aren't able to voice our opinion because,
or we don't feel comfortable, like we would like to remain anonymous, kind of things, which is valid, I guess, you know.
So he brought a survey to all the athletes, which I think is very smart, because if you feel scared to voice your opinion because you feel somebody's somebody's gonna knock you down, it's nice to just have that survey. So then in that survey they sent out that you need to, you know, give us 5 reps from each group. So that was 5 reps for the individual women, 5 reps from the individual men, 5 reps from the teams, 5 reps from the coaches, you know. And then they could work with that internal group, because it was a smaller group. And they did find, you know, should it be an exhibition? Should it be a competition? There's so many people who this is their livelihood and they've been training. There's also so many people who were great friends with Lazar. And when he came back with the percentages from the survey to make these small groups, it was actually 78% who said, yes, we should continue. When they did that in the big group, just when they sat down, it was a lot smaller. People were afraid to say yes, they wanted to compete because of the voices who were saying that they shouldn't compete. But then they gave the option also to, hey, if you want to compete, you can. If you don't want to compete today, then don't take as much time as you need, but you'll always have an opening in the game. So they were able to come back and compete if they wanted to, because grieving doesn't take 5 hours, 6 hours. Could take a year. It could take 20 years. It could possibly not take any time. And that's what you just live with. So I did like that option with that. They're like, hey, you can still come back. I'm also like on the fence. I'm not an athlete out there, but like when you think about it, it's like, how could you give me just like 6 hours to think if I want to compete? You know, and to do this. And they did have a tribute, and they did have that, you know, like that whole, if you wanted to wait a minute, and me and Joyce have talked about this, and even we had Emily come over, and we all had different opinions about it. My whole thing is, if you gave a minute, when people look at that and they see it's an option and they go, this is my livelihood, they're not going to take that minute in that tribute. I felt like if they were going to do a tribute, it should have been, it's a mandatory minute for everybody. You know, it's that. But then we did see at the end of a lot of them, like they knelt down, they were there for each other. And it's nice to see that as well. I just feel like that minute should have been a mandatory minute across the board. Right. You know,
to kind of equate at least the level playing field. Because now it's kind of like, well, only a few took that minute, but that definitely obviously impacted their time. And because of them taking that minute, now they're like on the bottom.
And I'm like, they worked their butt off
too. They did,
even if you're not sponsored or anything, but because
of their beliefs and what they represent, they stand for, they're going to be penalized that 1 minute. You know, and it's kind of like, I get that point too. I also understand the point of having a choice of determining whether or not. But I'm with you in that I would have preferred kind of like, you know how they do in basketball games where they're like, okay, let's all do the national ball and let's all take a minute now standing here together. Athletes and spectators. Let's take a minute and then let's start the event. You know, I think that would have been nicer as a community, and not just kind of putting it on the athlete, but putting it on everyone, I think would have been a nicer homage. But honestly, I feel like that was just one aspect of like the entire games that I was kind of like, this could have been, I feel like the games in 2024 could have been done a little bit better in so many ways. But I understand what the impact of what happened. It just kind of just, it set a lot of things back.
And then I'll touch on Don Fowle's briefing really quick because I got the email and I know you did. Yeah. And he does, do that claim that it happened on our watch and it should not have. Because if you guys think about it, like, what, in a couple of years, they're going to have their 25th games. And they haven't had an incident like this before. Yes, there has been times for like heat stroke and things like that. And there's times when I've talked to members of our gyms and it's like, that shouldn't have happened either. Like, performing when that heat is that bad, and people also pass away from heat stroke. Like, we do want to find the fittest of the earth, but we also don't want to watch you guys just
do it at the cost of your life.
And I'm not saying that Lazar going into the water, that was him saying at the cost of his life. I'm just saying that sometimes with these games, the people who are making them could design the safety issue a little bit more about things. And I know that they can't permit about weather, they can't permit about things that aren't in their control, but they can permit about their safety and who's around for their safety and who's around to keep them there. And who knows if this was a money thing or anything, but if it comes out to that, like, it's, how dare you do that? But again, that's also speculation that we don't want to put out there.
Right. But given that it was an event out in nature and in the water, and it's definitely should have been, at least I think, the event that was most watched.
Oh, yeah. The most, and I've seen past ones and seeing the lifeguards, and because I remember a Wadapalooza one that people literally like were holding on to the lifeguards paddle boards and things like that, or the lifeguards were noticing those things. I don't know what their staffing was like, if they had the same amount of staff or if they just thought, oh, this should suffice because these are athletes. Athletes also have things that happened.
Oh, girl, the other day I was on a paddleboard with Chelsea, actually, and my leg cramped because I just came back from a workout. And she was just like, yeah, that's why I don't work out in paddleboard, because you could cramp up. And then it's like, you're stiff. You can't do anything. I was like holding on to that board and I was just stuck for a few minutes. And it's scary.
And with water,
it's terrifying.
Water is scary. It has like that high percentage of people who drown. Like, it's not...
We're talking about temperature. We're talking about current. We're talking about being surrounded by lots of people who are splashing at your face. Like, it's not fun. It's not easy.
But Don did say that they're initiating a third-party investigation and will provide transparency while also respecting the ones closest to this situation. I don't know how I feel like that with that.
What do you mean?
Like, when they're like, we'll provide you with all the transparency and all of this. And it's like,
I hope so.
Will you? Because you also have to keep, I feel like
protect
with big companies,
HQ.
They like to protect themselves, and CrossFit is becoming a big company. But I do like how it's like, hopefully they are going to the family and being like, hey, like, do you want us to share this? Are you okay with us sharing this? But who knows what the communication is with the family.
Yeah. I think for me,
that's very hard.
I just wish I would have heard more like, this happened. This is what we don't want to happen. This is what we're going to do to fix it. Here are our plans for it. Like, I wish I heard more of that. And it felt like it was more like, let us cover our butts and make sure that, we're mourning this in the right way and like respecting everyone's opinions. And I'm like, yeah, that's good too. But also, like, I feel like we need that assurance that CrossFit HQ is going to do everything in its power to ensure that, this is not going to happen.
Yeah. Because it's like,
how are you going to protect the
you
athletes?
emailed us by now. And this should have been, and I remember, I think it was the first thing that they brought out, and they just kept saying an athlete. And it's like, who it was. Yeah. It's just not any athlete. You know who it is. So the least you can do is speak his name. But they are committed to implementing changes during that investigation. If they find changes that they need to do, especially for safety, they do plan on implementing it. Their discussion put athletes in a difficult decision when they discuss with putting on the game still, and that does put all the athletes in a difficult decision, and they do respect what the athlete chose, whether to stay in or not. And with that, I know I said that was going to be the last thing I said, but I'm going to go over who actually withdrew. Of course, Luca did. Jeff Adler did. Laura Horvath, Karin Freyova, Emma Tall, Alicia Fuliano, Victoria Campos, Sam Cornier, Guy, Mortiz Fiebig. I'm sorry if I mess up anybody's name. Yeah. Jacqueline Dahlstrom, Danny Spiegel, and Ariel Lohman. Wow. Jacqueline Dahlstrom, Danny Spiegel, and Ariel Lohman were the most recent with it. And a couple of these like withdrew right away, and a couple of them tried. Right. You know, I mean, you could see like Guy was just
on the floor, but he was bawling.
Yeah. And then you could see Jessa Medeiros too. Like everybody was having such a feel, and it is like
they were struggling.
Your mindset is completely different with this. Completely. So it's just to see them, and you can't fault them for withdrawing and being like, my headspace isn't in this. Like, I would love to, and I have been training all year for this as well, but I just can't. Like, how do you honor or memorialize somebody when it just happened? And I know they're saying by competing, a lot of them are, but for some of them it's like, but it's not.
It's like, how can I compete when my friend is never going to compete again?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I think that's the thought that runs through my mind. Is like, wow, I get the honor of being here and like being in the games and working out, and this person is never going to be able to do that again.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of like,
and that's what they say. Everybody's
rough.
Grieving different.
It's
Everybody's
rough.
doing something, and it is. It's something that there is no right answer.
Right.
At all. So I get that. But
yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like making sure that we're all kind of mourning and supporting each other through the mourning in whatever capacity or way that you're deciding to mourn. And I think not blaming anyone for not mourning the way that you do. And it's hard. It's hard when feelings are like, you know, in the air, and, you know, feelings are high, and it's difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it is. Because like how Joyce was saying in my notes that I would put like, oh, he looks so sad. Like a lot of them. And they wore his jersey, and they trained with him. You see like fire in their eyes, but for most of them in the upcoming heats that we talk about, you just see so much sadness. So
it was tough. It was
tough to watch. Very tough to watch. But let's go on with the show.
Event number 2.
Yes.
So day 2. So after, you know, everything that happened the day before, they decided to proceed with the games. And, you know, Friday, the next day, they were up and running. They went on with event 2 called Midline Climb. This event was also for time, and this one's a doozy. So we had 50 deadlifts at 155 for women, 225 for men, 3 rope climbs, and then 30 for women, 50 for men, calorie ski erg, and then another 3 rope climbs, and then we move on to 50 GHD sit-ups. Another 3 rope climbs, another 50 GHD sit-ups, 3 rope climbs, and then we're going back down to the 30-50 skier calories, 3 rope climbs, and 50 deadlifts. And let me tell you, when I saw those athletes go out there, they were fatigued, they were tired, and they were trudging. But I think it was a really neat one, because especially when you got to the deadlift section, that last section, I love those competitions where you can see the athlete right in front of you, and you're just like, I need to trudge through these so I could catch up. And this was that kind of race for sure.
But that was a big test, and the ropes were different, right? You had
different lengths,
12-foot, the shorter ones, and then you had the longer ones, and it was just completely like hamstrings with the deadlift, and then you have that pull and the grip with the rope, and then you had the ski erg with hamstrings. You have your GHD with your hamstrings and your midline, and then rope. It's just like midline and hamstrings like eating it away.
Yeah.
So it was and that's why they call it the midline climb. But yeah, it was
a toughie.
It was a tough, like, to watch all of them do that, and it was. But where did I see with my notes?
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Blake failed on the note.
You know what?
In the note. So Blake was on note duty.
And like, well, also like when we went over, like, I was at the gym. I was watching this event, and then when we went to Joyce's house, I was like, wait, this isn't the event I watched. So
because I played the evening first before the morning.
and I was like, how
that was
come?
my bad.
No, I think it's also how they were putting things on YouTube.
Yeah, it was so confusing, y'all.
Even though they put morning and evening and things like that, there was things that I missed. I didn't get to see one of the events, the track and field one.
And field one.
And then there was the
because
clean
it
climb
wasn't
that we'll go
labeled
over.
right.
Yeah, it was just
A confusing way of setting it up on YouTube. It was
where
really
I'm
good.
used to just the full day.
Yeah, usually they'll just put day 1, day 2, day 3.
And they were like, sometimes they would put like, oh, individuals. So if you just wanted to watch individuals, and then they would have teams if you didn't want to watch the whole day. But it wasn't this year how everything was. It just wasn't running to what I'm used to. And change takes time for people to get used to. But I did not like how things were on YouTube and
Commentating and
it was just, they're still like saying the wrong name, saying the wrong rep, and it's like, you guys, when you tell me that Brooke Wells just finished and the camera is literally on her and she has not finished, it kind of puts me into like, really, guys?
stresses me out.
And like going into like, could we get any women commentators?
Honestly, Blake was like, put me in, coach, put me in.
And I know for the teams they did. They had Annie Sakamoto and Lauren Smith for the teams, but it was like, we just got some big hitters for commentator and we couldn't even get them. But, you know, like, that's just another thing that I get upset about. Yeah. table flip on it.
It was pretty noticeable, and you were kind of like, come on, guys.
I was like, okay, this is how it's gonna be
now, guys. Come on, pick it up.
Yeah. So like with that one, I was so upset watching it too, because I was like, how come nobody's taking the minute? How come? Because in between also like the commercials were, you know, train with proven, get a bottle shaker. And I was like, how come there's no memorial? How come there's no this? And then Joycey switched it to the morning. And then I was like, there's the memorial of Lazar.
Right.
There's during the times you get to see his best moments, or just him working out, him being with his brother, the comments from all the loving community. So I did go back down, because I was like, this is not what I saw.
She was on fire.
I'm so upset. Like, I get that this is people's livelihood, but that was somebody's life that is no longer with us, you know. And that's why I'm going back to like, everybody should have just mandatory a minute, even if it was the first workout, going back into it. So yeah, but what's the next
Event
one?
3. This one I really liked. I like those sprinting workouts that are just kind of like neck to neck. And that was Firestorm. This was 3 rounds for time, 11 calories for women, 15 calories of Echo Bike calories for men, and then 11 burpees over barricade. And this was done in less than, what was the cap? I think it was like 5 minutes.
I think so.
It was insane.
Look, we can't even commentate. It was because, remember the one,
it was less than 5 minutes. I think that was the cap.
Yeah, I think Walton won the women's. She was just like, her hair, like her whole body was in that bike, just
it was cool,
fighting, and she beat Tia over it, and it was just crazy to see. And then you had those burpees, and then that's when we were also seeing like, oh wait, they're not here competing. Like, we just saw their names and they're not competing. And that's when Jason Hopper 2:32 was his time, Pat Vellner, Luckett, Aaron Caron. But like, the one thing that I remember out of that one was just Guy.
Yep.
Like, that's all I could remember out of that event. How just like sad he was, and how internally and externally his emotions were just out.
He was wearing his Dukic shirt, and he was out there, but he was just like, even when he like the event started and he like got on the bike, he was just like trudging on that thing. Literally, he just got on it like, I really don't want to be here, and it was really rough to see. And of course, he was the last one to finish in that heat, and you could just feel the heaviness.
Yeah, it was very heavy watching that, even though it was a quick workout. That one just like it was hard to see. And I know he wasn't just the only one who had some breakdowns, but yeah. But that one was a quick workout.
Sprint.
Yeah, and it wasn't, burpees over the barricade was fun to watch, and it was a cool workout. And the entire time, like, I'm like, oh, my legs, how can they do those jumps, like,
dude? Yeah.
And just the burpees, like, you could see some of them too, be like, oh, hold on, I know, and you start to slow it down, and it was just like, come on. It looked
painful.
It did.
Super painful.
It's the next one.
And then event 4, this was a track and field one. This one was very fun to watch. It was a nighttime event. Mind you, if you look it up on YouTube, it will probably say day 2 prime time. It does not say morning or evening, which was the confusing part about finding it. So just a heads up. But that one was a 1,600 meter run, 4 time. And then once you hit the 12-minute mark, so athletes would go run their miles. Some of them would finish. Most of them finished like in 5:50 range for the mile. But you finish it at whatever time you finish. And then you're given like about 6 minutes to kind of take a break. And at the 12-minute mark, athletes would go on a 50-yard sprint, then a 50-yard bag carry, which was shaped in the shape of Texas. It was really cute looking.
It was.
It was 70 pounds for women, 100 pounds for men. And then they did another 75-yard sprint, and then another 75-yard back carry, and finished that off with the 100-yard sprint, which, again, I love me a good sprint run. Drop the bag, you see all the women's going to the other side, and you're like, who's going to take it? And, of course, it was the amazing Tia Toomey.
I did see at the end, like, they were like, oh, is Haley going to take her? Now it's Haley's chance. It was just, and then also, like, Emily Rolfe is a great runner, but then you had Kringle. Kringle's like a big time. This is her first year also, she's a rookie year.
And smoking it.
And she's been doing great, and she's been pushing
Tia.
All the, veterans.
She's like, I'm back here, girl.
But I did get to see that on TikTok, like, her completely just sprinted out.
It was cool. It was really cool.
Seeing her back in action and on display again
I should try that workout.
I don't like running, so.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about running with a bag, but
yeah.
Seems cool.
But I was kind of upset that I couldn't find it and it just be not out there.
It took me some
And then when
research.
you were telling me, and I was like, I didn't get to see it. I'm like, what the heck?
I know, because I was looking for it because I saw it on Instagram, and I was like, what is this track and field one? And then I looked it up on CrossFit.com, and I'm like, nope, we have not seen that. And then that's when I pulled out the prime time, and I was like, this is weird.
Yeah, see, I don't.
But it did take me minutes to find.
So then let's go into what
Chad.
Saturday was. We started with Chad.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a different way of Chad, because they had, like, instead of just going up on one box, they had like a second box, right? So you were kind of going up a 2-step ladder.
Up and down. So they had trips over, and you had 2 feet for each one.
That's crazy.
Which, even though I wasn't there were a couple that you did not see them do 2 feet, and yet their reps were counted. And it is hard.
That's what makes it hard, because it's so many steps.
And it is, and it's like you have to hold them accountable too. Like, it's 2 feet. I did like that they had a box for Lazar out there. So people were, to have that presence that he was still there. And it's also a memorial one, right, to memorialize Chad. And Chad's wife did speak on the matter and why we do it and what he did and why he also started doing these 1,000 step ups. And so I think for some that helped. For others it didn't, because they thought that it would make them feel better, and they found out at the end it did not. So again, it's their mindset, where they're at, their grief, where they're at with grief.
Yeah.
So, but
even saw some, like, kind of when they finished their boxes, just sit on the box and kind of cry. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah, it was. But I did like the twist on it, because I was like, really, how are you going to put a twist on this? I mean, in a sense, watching people just go up and down, that's a little bit
I did skip a
like,
little. I was like,
yeah, because they were expecting it to be like an hour and a half.
dude, but the coming down of the boxes, that's the part that I was like, that's going to be tricky because you need to pivot. Well,
So you could pivot or you
side it.
don't, but it is. It's more of the factor of coming down than coming up. And then, you know, taller athletes have a little bit more than those shorter athletes because our hinging of getting up there and getting our leg on that and then trusting yourself on the way down is very rough on the ankles, you know, and the knees.
That's what was scary.
So it was nice to see everybody out on the floor though. I did like to see all the individual men, all the individual women, and they were just all out there doing it. And the different technique again with the the 2 steps and things like that. But Sprague won that event with 43 minutes 59. Then you had Austin Hatfield, which he was a little bit in the lead, but then towards the end Sprague overtook it. But also Austin's on the shorter side, so they didn't think that he was gonna take it at all.
That's why I love it, because they'll surprise you, man. Some events are tailored for some people and they just like knock it out of the park and you're like, how? And you're like,
Yep. And then you had Roman, Pat. You also had Dallin Pepper. See, that was the thing. Like, I saw like when people were finishing and he was already on the floor and I was like, oh, y'all not even gonna talk about Dallin Pepper, who's already finished. So I had to look his time up. And that's what also is frustrating when they're like, oh, so-and-so's all close. And it's just like, did you guys not just see the other person like finish before them?
right.
Like, why? Again, like he's been doing CrossFit in the teens. He dominated the teens and he's been working his butt off for the individuals. It's like,
because they only sometimes film the ones that were interested to see, quote unquote, and they miss out on all the other people, and you're like, what?
Yeah. So it's it's crazy to see. But Emily Rolfe won that one in 47 minutes and 1 second. Gabby Magala took second, Haley Adams, and then Tia Toomey. So that was your top 4 for the ladies. Very proud of all of them because Emily Rolfe has been in the CrossFit scene for a while. Magala has. Of course, Haley Adams took a year off, so her coming back. Just like to see where she's going to land. I feel like even if she lands a top 5 after taking a year off and coming back, like that's a complete win.
Heck of an accomplishment.
She took time off to get her mental health under control and just being there for herself. And again, she's also young, like living her life.
Don't blame her.
You know, and then you have Tia coming back from, you know, having a baby, doing all kinds of stuff, building her community and but yeah, it was just, you know, back to our, you know, whole not getting our names right and not understanding who's doing what.
You know how I was thinking about the other day? Mel O'Brien.
I know.
I know she's living her life too in Hawaii and doing her thing. But I'm just like, man, I'm missing her compete. And she's just so nonchalant about this. She's just like, let me do this crazy heavy lift. Done. And it's like, I don't know. I just miss her.
I think she had way too much pressure on her at a young age.
I mean,
I think her and Haley both did. And it was that pressure like, oh, I guess they can't do it. So it's like,
that's a lot.
I was like, they were both 19. Like, let them live. 18 and 19. Like, just let them, even though they're doing amazing things, if they don't win, it's okay.
Right.
And if they're, you know, even if they're going with Matt Frazier and she's doing amazing things and all this stuff,
I'm so jealous.
She doesn't win.
That Coach Chris and Coach Amanda Matt Frazier. I was like,
it was.
That's so cool, dude. We have to go to the game so that I can meet Matt Frazier
one day. But I do want to touch on the teams because Cara was on the teams, and I was watching one of the events and the commentators were saying how much like the raw iron CrossFit, like people thought they were a joke, like they weren't gonna even qualify for the games. Like, why would any of them be able to? And it's like you have 3 great veterans on there. You have James Newsbury, Cara Saunders, and then you have Con Porter, and then Emily, who's a newer one. But you have 3 great veterans on there. So I don't see why anybody wouldn't have taken them serious, which is sad. But yeah, it was I was like, how dare you? How dare you?
Like, that's my girl.
Yeah. And I was like, Con Porter is amazing. And James Newsbury is even more amazing. Like, you have amazing teams. And then, yeah, you have a newcomer. But, like, come on.
People don't know skill when they see it.
But then we had the clean ladder. The clean ladder was so much fun to watch. I was like, yes, a heavy barbell. Let's get into it. And then there was so many rounds because you had, these were for time. So you had to get a fast time because it was 2-minute time cap for each one of these.
Ooh.
So you had, round 1 was 3, 3, 2, 2, 1 in cleans. Round 2 was 2, 1, 1, 1. And then the final rounds were just singles. But the weight went up. So round 1, the women were 165, 175, 185, 195, and 205. And the men were 255, 265, 275, 285, 295. For round 2, it goes up. Women is 205, 215, 225, 230. Men started at 295, which was their ending of the last one, 305, 315, 325. And then the last round, they started where they ended in the last one in round 2, which was 230, 240, and then the last one was 250. The men again started where they left off in round 2, 325, bumped up to 345, and ended with 365.
Dang.
Yeah. And you had to get it done. All right. So like when I was watching, I was like, oh, wow. Like, look at all this stuff. But again, so the men went first and all the men were on the floor.
Whew. That's heavy.
But you went into groups. So you had groups of 5. But all the men were on the first group was a group of 5. And then you had groups of 10.
Oh, damn.
But it was so awesome to see, like, them all hanging out, warming up, saying, oh, what about that? Like, just voicing or even seeing them laugh together and just being, like, that camaraderie and that community. Awesome. Just, like, with Chad. I was like, that is, like, amazing. They're talking to each other. They're there for each other. They're doing what they can. It just makes me feel like even if, this heartbreak didn't happen, to see what this community can do. So for the men... in Heat 1, Razem got 50 seconds. Bailey Martin got 1 minute and 6, right? And then in round 2 was Hatfield with 53 seconds. Aaron Caron with 53.44. And then Bruno Marins beat Hatfield by 1 second. He got 52 seconds. And that was the thing. So they kept commenting on Hatfield. And I was like, Marin's just
started right by
him. But it wasn't close. Like, it was also the chip. Like, it was that quick. And Hatfield just put his wrong foot in front. You got to know which foot has your chip timer on.
But see, those are things that I wouldn't even think of. Yeah. But smart.
In the second heat of that first round, Mayer did 46 seconds. So he was the lead. Then Medeiros did 51 seconds. So he was second. And it was so fun to see, like, after Mayer, he was walking back with everybody and he just, like, did that muscle and he was just like, yeah, I did that. And then when they asked him, like, hey, what do you think about and stuff like that, he's like, you just get angry and frustrated and all that stuff, you just take it out on that bar. And I wanted to break the bar, and I was like, yeah,
that's
data
cool.
4.
That's cool. I'm like, yeah.
I just love how they were always like, data 4, data 4, data 4. And I was like, he didn't pop out those 4 babies. Like, how do you do this while I watch my kids? I'm like,
and what does that have to do with this weightlifting?
Yeah, like, you didn't pop out those babies. Nobody goes to the women and be like,
you don't know what that's
popped out a kid and came back. Like, they're just like, she had a baby.
Though, right?
Yeah. But then we went into the last heat with that. Gerard got 50 seconds. Oh. And Brent, Pepper, and Bellner also. The last heat, I didn't get those 3s last because they were the slowest heat to being the last heat, which was so funny. But it was like, they didn't even see Dallin Pepper get in before Brent Fikowski. Again, I was like, Dallin is doing amazing things. Why isn't anybody saying anything? So let's move on to round 2. They do a cut, right? So I think they had 40. The men had a little bit more than the women. But they cut down to 20.
Ooh.
And in this one, you had 2 rounds. So Pat finished in 34 seconds. Hopper finished in 35. Hatfield finished in 27 seconds.
Ooh.
And Mayer finished in 29.
Wow.
So Hatfield has a clean of 400. Right?
That's insane.
Yeah, 400 pounds. Like, that's just insane. And then the last one, round 3, you had
dude, I just can't imagine. I can't.
So you had everybody like, Hatfield's gonna do it, Hatfield's gonna do it, Hatfield's gonna do it. Picks up the last weight, totally backs out of it. His weight was all on his heels. So then you have Marins, Medeiros, and Mayer, like, all fighting for it. You have all 3 M&Ms. And Medeiros got it.
Nice.
Yes. And then Marins
and he looked so
Mayer
cute
got
while he was doing it.
He was. He's wearing his glasses.
I love it when he wears his glasses.
You're getting so serious.
I love it. I'm like, this is a good look for you, bud. I'm like, mullet, mustache, glasses.
Yeah.
It works. No glasses, doesn't work.
So here's the thing. So with the clean ladder, the men go. They say names right away. They're saying in round heat 1 people's names, heat 2. You know, women go. You think they said anybody's name in heat 1 start off to even look at? No. They did say Cara Milligan's name as they started lifting. I was like, y'all didn't even go over who we should be looking at now? Now you don't? Yeah. So she took first in that heat. She did 45 seconds. McQuaid did a minute and 7. I think the biggest thing, they were just like, oh, Wells the favorite. But she did heat 2. And they just kept saying that. She did not finish in the top 3. So even though she was the favorite, she didn't.
I feel like ever since her injury, her weightlifting has been kind of like, which I don't blame her because, I mean, after that,
also, you're slowly still coming back. Even if you had an injury from 2 years ago,
it's a mental thing too.
You have to build that weight back up.
And even just like that comfort with the bar to not be scared of that it's going to, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. So then we went to heat 2, which has Pentahiro. She's 41 years old. She could have done the Masters that we were talking about on the bike.
Yeah, she was a monster, dude. I was like, who is that?
And then you had Shelby Neal. She finished in a minute.
There's no way she's 41.
Yeah, she's 41. She could have gone to the Masters, but she chose the individuals.
That's badass.
Yep.
She's like, no, I got this. That's cool. So
Shelby Neal won that heat. Heat 3 was Gazan. She won it in 48 seconds, but you also had Lawson, Dormant, Stanley, and Wells. So sorry, I said Wells was in the second heat. She was in the third. She finished 5th, even though she was the favorite to win that heat. Then you have heat 4. You have Maddie Sturt, Tia, and Magala. And this was the coolest one to watch. Maddie and Tia were like neck and neck. And it was just like, who's going to get it? And Maddie Sturt got it.
Oh!
Yeah. It was so fun to watch.
Yeah, you got to love it.
Okay, so then we'll go down to round 2. Heat 1, Neil did 44 seconds.
Toomey's going to come back, though.
Yeah. So you have heat 2, you have Toomey, Milligan, were neck and neck. And then it was just like, it went Tia, Kira, and then Alex Gazan. Nice. So it was so fun to watch when they hit the lift, like neck to neck. They're hitting it at the same time. And you're just like, who's gonna get it? And then in the last round, again, it was Toomey, Milligan, and Gazan, and Toomey got it. And when they interviewed Kira Milligan, they're like, well, you said like we couldn't do an interview in between, and then we're like, you're gonna have to do the interview if you win. And you're like, okay. And he's like, what happened? He goes, Tia just knew where the clip thing was to get in for her time clipper thing on their feet.
Ah,
yeah,
interesting.
I was like, again, you gotta know
you
that
do
time.
strategy, man.
Yeah.
Strategy. CrossFit is a big game of strategy too, man. Yeah. That's how Matt Frazier got through a lot of it,
right? Mm-hmm. So it was really fun to watch. I really, really enjoyed that.
All right, the next event, the final event of that day, was the Push Pull 2.0. This one was also for time and involved 45 handstand push-ups. 80-foot sled pull from standing. Mind you, it's 110 pounds for women, 180 for men. Now we're going on a 30 strict handstand push-ups, and then another 80-foot sled pull seated, not from standing, seated from the platform, and then finishing it off with 15 freestanding handstand push-ups.
But that one was fun to watch. The only thing is, when I was looking at it, when they have the little thing of what the workout was going to put, they put 8 80-foot sled pulls.
Ooh.
And so, like, when they just did one, I was like, wait a minute, it says 8 on there. I was like, it's just one. Why'd they put 8? But they brought back that Texas sandbag and they put it on there to do the pull. And the one pull was the standing and you couldn't back up. The other one was seated and you had to do a pull. I know Saxon Panchek, he had to like move his because both of the metal parts of the thing that they were pulling weren't hitting it. So he literally had to get up and like make sure both were being pulled.
Oh, Danny Brandon's number 9.
Yeah. Medeiros, again, wearing his glasses the entire time. He finished in 7 minutes and 58 seconds. Saxon
He was wearing his glasses while he was on a handstand push-up? How cute.
Yes. And Saxon did 6 minutes and 31. And James Sprague on the handstand push-up. This is where people were passing him. And it is. So you go to kipping handstand push-ups and then you have to do some pulling and then you go to strict. Strict is a lot harder and you don't want to just like fail at those and get no reps. And then you have the freestanding. Now, Sprague did understand like how to hit those freestanding. A lot of the men and the women, like even when I watched the teams, it was very hard for them to hit freestanding, which is funny because like games prior there was an event and it was the final event and it was where they had to do freestanding handstand push-ups. You know, so it's something that you all had to practice if it was like from games prior. But it was crazy to see. But again, all that fatigue from Chad, all the fatigue from the cleans, all the fatigue from all everything that day, and doing 15 freestanding handstand push-ups.
Yeah, you always see it in the last event of the day. People are just exhausted.
Yes,
they're
and they
done.
had so much, and I was like, what more do they have to give? That's a lot. But yeah, that was
hefty.
That was the push and pull. But let's go into the last day today, Sunday.
Feels like Super Bowl Sunday. Who's gonna win? Dun, dun, dun. All right. I'm like, last day, August 11th. And we start off with Dickie's Triplet. What a name. Right?
I know.
It's 5 rounds for time, starting off with so much running. Oh my goodness. 175-meter run, 12 toes to bars, and then 8 alternating dumbbell snatches at 70 pounds for women, 100 pounds for men. Wow. That looks like a fun one.
And it wasn't even, that's a quick run.
Yeah, I'll say that's not bad, but I feel like a lot of the events had running. It's like at least 3.
I think the track one, but this one was fun to watch because it was very quick to watch. So for the women went first. In that first heat, you had Emma McQuaid, Kira Milligan, and Shelby Neal. Shelby Neal won that event, and she broke up her toes to bar, which she does the same training as Brent Fikowski. And you also find out that Shelby Neal is an engineer.
Oh, small gal.
So she doesn't have that much time to, train because she works full time. So she was saying that how some nights turn into like 9:30, and then you go to work and just very hard nights, very hard days.
Damn.
Of pushing.
No excuses for me.
And then you had Emma McQuaid, like I voiced before. She's trained with Sam Briggs, was absolutely amazing at the games and stuff like that. Strong lady. 2, you have Alexis Raptis, which her name was supposed to be like, people were thinking that she was going to be top 3 no problem this year because of everything, all the training. Again, like this year, so many people like Emma Lawson, like the ones that we felt like years prior were very heavy hitters and very consistent. It's, you don't see them, and we can see if it was due to what happened or if it just how these workouts were. You had Daniel Brandon finish and Alex Gazan. Those were the top 3 of racing. And then you had Heat 3 with Tia and Gabby Magala and Haley Adams. So there was Tia kept like with the runs, because they were saying you do not need to like sprint these out. Her runs kept climbing in time, or I shouldn't say climbing, decreasing. Like her,
That's smart.
Like she would do a run and she'd get quicker time each time on her run, which is smart. And it's not saying like you should completely be the slowest in the first round. It's like
Strategy, girl.
yeah, it's like having a good time that you know is still fast, but how fast can I go at the end?
That's how I do it.
So she did amazing. She won that event at 7:23. Gabby got 7:33, and Haley got 7:49. Then with the men, you had Bailey Martin started slowing down by like the fourth or fifth round. Like his runs were slowing down, and he was like the favorite for that one. Like he was in the lead. But by the end, it was just Hatfield started speeding up. So
And that's what made
again, yep, if you're speeding up in that in those first couple of rounds, you're going to start to die off. So
rough.
Hatfield did the heat win at 7:28, and then Carone and Yukai were neck and neck, but Carone inched out just a second. And then heat 2 was Wapalan, Panchik, Quant, and Mayer were those tops. Wapalan just like sprinted, and he knew that he's a better runner than he is with the dumbbell. The dumbbell slowed a lot of people down. But he was just like a seventh of a tenth of a second ahead of Panchik. And it was just, it's seeing how these guys with the running and knowing what you have to hit and all this stuff, it was seeing when people were starting to die off and when people were speeding up, and Panchik almost had him. Heat 3, all of them were going strong. Like there was not a big separation at all. Like these other prior heats, it was just like everybody. And then Spriggs slowly started to get a little bit of a separation in that second round. But then Hopper was slowly picking up his speed. And right before they went to the Toaster Bar, there was a little body check by Sprague and Hopper won that event. So it went Hopper, Sprague, Fikowski, Vellner, and Dallin Pepper.
Okay.
So it was really cool to watch that. And then also what was going on was the teams. Their final was in between all this. And I want to say my girl Cara Saunders team won first.
Nice.
This is the first every year that an Oceania team has won.
That's pretty cool.
It was
when everyone was doubting them.
Awesome, right? Absolutely awesome. And then they let all of them speak, and I'm not going to cry about this. I might a little bit. But Cara Saunders said that she's actually retiring.
For sure?
For sure.
Oh,
This was her last year competing. So it's been, 12 to 13 years of this.
Don't cry. She knows you personally.
She's feeling a few things. She's like, it's okay to feel happy and also okay to feel sad. And we're all grieving and we all grieve differently. And she was just like, I feel like he's here and he's with us. And, whether any of those athletes do or not, like, she felt like Lazar was there, and she said it took her, 12 years to realize that she wasn't supposed to be an individual winner. She was supposed to be a winner on a team, and that she needed people around her and her community around her to help her win. I know. I was literally crying in my kitchen because I was like
queen.
She has been competing, and I love watching her so much. And just for her to exit on a win and to be like, you know what? I didn't need to do it on my own. I needed a team. Where most people, when you hear that, you're like, oh, no, I just suck as an individual. I'm going to go to teams and I'll just kick everybody's butt. And it's like her to be so grateful to be like, no, I needed them. They didn't need me. I needed them to push, and I needed. And she did amazing, And then we go to James Newsbury, all these people. got
Oh,
me.
but I think just to kind of pivot on that real quickly, I think it's beautiful that she kind of brings that up because it makes me think of like other athletes who kind of have their own journey and are always second guessing, like, did I pick the right path? Did I not? And then kind of coming to terms with like, wow, maybe this was my path all along. Why was I forcing this path for so long when I already had one, you know, and it was like something that it's crazy.
And I feel like sometimes people are like, oh, it's because you age out in individuals or you don't want to do masters or you're not strong enough by yourself. So you go to teams.
Like, what a cop out. And it's
and
like,
I'm like,
it's
I
not.
don't see that. It is. There's times when you know, it's better to be on a team because you just give that extra push. And that's what James Newsbury was. He's like, individually, like, I go all out there, you know, and do it to the best of my abilities. But on a team, you can always find more. You can find that 10% more. You can find that, no, I can do it. You know, even though you're tired and you see somebody struggling on your team, you'd be like, no, I got this. Go ahead and take a break. And I did like seeing this year's teams events because there was times when, not just because years past it'd always be like, oh, male, male, female, female, or male, female, like two people working. There was a workout where it was always 3 people working and one person resting, which is hard because how can you take, okay, now I'm going to let you give rest, but the other 2 are doubling the work. And then that one is maybe tripling the work before you get to them. So that's hard. And to say like, no, you can have that 10%, you can have that push. But yeah, to have them say that. And then they went to Emily, who's the rookie. This is only her 2nd year at the games. She said she's just so thankful for the community, the countrymen, the connections she made, the people she met. And she said that those were way more important than being on the podium. And then Con Porter, who's just like the most amazing man on the planet.
Chris. Chris Walker.
He made me cry so much because he's just great at the feelings. But he said, tell somebody today that you love them. Tell everybody today that you love them. And I was just like,
that's how I felt when I got to Vegas that Thursday. And I was just like, Jackie, I'm so glad we're alive. I'm so glad we're going to a concert today. Like, we get to breathe this air.
We get to breathe.
Yeah.
We get to do these things. Because you really never know. And we hear that all the time. And when these events happen, we say that, but we really need to focus on perspective. That. Yep. It was awesome to see her win and see what was going on. And a little bit, I was excited that an Invictus team didn't win.
I know. Not to be mean, but they win all the time.
Yeah. But the Mayhem teams were out there too, and they were winning. So
I mean, when you're good, man.
I know.
What can you say?
But I feel because the Invictus teams kind of like broke apart, and it was new Invictus teams, and Chandler was on an Invictus team with his wife.
Maybe that's what we need to explore, Blake. Maybe we need a team. Yeah. And we just need one famous, like, elite person, you know?
I feel like those people are so much buffer than we are. They're not competing in the games.
They're like, you guys are too old.
Yeah, I was like, I'm still waiting until I'm 55.
That's true. We're doing masters.
Yeah.
We've decided.
Like
that's the best chance we got, guys.
The older age masters.
Yeah, like 80s.
No, I said 55.
Hey, my grandpappy lived to be 90-something, so I might have a chance.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's hope.
But let's go into what the final workout is, and then we'll see if they updated anything.
Well, this is a long one.
There's 2 finals. So you have 24-21 and 18-15.
How mean?
The first final is for time. It is 24 thrusters at 65 and 95, 24 chest to bar, 80-foot yoke carry at 245 and 425. Man. And then 21 chest to bars and 21 thrusters. Then you have 2-minute rest before you go into the actual final. So this is final part B, 18-15. It is 18 thrusters at 95 and 135, 18 bar muscle ups, 80-foot yoke carry again, but this time at 345 and 525.
Ouch.
15 bar muscle ups and 15 thrusters.
My goodness.
So that one seems a little rough.
Excessive. All right, guys. So we didn't have the results for the final event, so we had to take a pause and watch it, actually, and we did. But lots of controversy out of how to watch that final event.
Yeah, we even text our friend Jackie Marks
because we knew
she's in the end.
She's
and
been
we're
watching
like, hey, are you watching the games? And she's like, yeah, can't you believe what happened? They better fix that. And I was like, fix what? We can't even watch it. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, how are you watching it? And she's like, oh, we had to pay for it. And I was like, what? You had to pay for it? And
to watch
she's
the
like,
final?
Yeah, because we don't have ESPN.
Which lasted only like, what, 20 minutes?
20 minutes. Like,
you had to pay for 20 minutes.
Yeah. So it's like, really, guys?
And it was $20, you say?
$10.
Still, though, $10 to watch 20 minutes worth.
Yeah. And it's just like, after everything that's happened this weekend or this week, you guys couldn't put it on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know. That was weird. That was really strange.
She said that we had to pay for it last year, and I was like, well, I didn't. But come to find out, I have Hulu. Hulu is a runoff of ESPN.
That's right.
So we did not have to pay for it because Joyce was at my house.
Yes.
I made her stick around.
I wanted to watch it too, though. I was like...
But we were a little upset with that. I was like,
Not
really?
Cool.
Not cool.
Yeah.
I mean, but tell you what is cool is watching it. But the other thing that was kind of sucky about it is I couldn't rewind it. Yeah, it only rewound to a certain point. So we didn't get to watch the first heat of the women, and we only got the ending, the very end of the first heat of the men.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, in the end, we know the top 10, that's who's placing and who's whatever. But I like to watch everybody, especially since it's just 20 of them. But we didn't get to see the first heat of the women because it said that I couldn't rewind any farther. Yeah. So many things going on. But yeah.
But what we did see was great.
It was because we got to see... Austin Hatfield in his rookie year, he did really good and won his event heat. And BKG did very well. This is his 12th year competing, just like Cole Sager. And
so
just
cool.
Making it through. But yeah, it was fun to watch. What did you like about? We got to see the last heat of the women.
I like that it was such a wild card. Like at first, was it the first part of the workout? Like Alexis Raptis was like the winner. And then you came to the second part and then you're just like, ooh, who's going to bring it up? And then of course it was Tia Toomey who won it. But it was like, oh, I thought Alexis was going to take it. And then Magala looked really good. So I was like, oh, she's got it. And then it was like, nope. So I just love it when it's like that in the games.
But what happened in the first part with Kringle?
Oh yeah. That was a bummer.
That was a bummer because
they cut the time on her.
Well, they have two different horns. So they have a horn if all of the athletes complete it before the time cap, and they do that horn. And then they have the time cap beeper, like how we have at the gym. And they did the horn for all the athletes are off, which is hilarious because the camera is right on Kringle as they're blowing the horn. I'm like, that camera has to be on the big screen. Like, if we're seeing it, the big screen should be seeing it. So why is that going on? And then, like, the commentators are like, well, they might have to have her do it again. And I'm like, so she's going to have to do it again because somebody pressed the wrong button?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Which they were like, oh, that's not good for her. That's not her fault. But we might have to do it again. And it's like, no.
And she did finish it. Like, she finished the workout, but now
she
her time wasn't.
She would have finished before the time cap, too.
Yeah. So now her time was just chopped.
Yeah. So that's sad. But yeah, I enjoyed that, too, because it was like Alexis, Pensacola. Paige Semenza. That's it. Paige Semenza and Alexis like started racing. They were head to head, and then Toomey started getting into it, and then it was Alexis and Toomey, and then you're like, Alexis won it. And then they got into Emma. I loved it. Magala had to go back too in that first event because she got a no rep.
She was missing like I think 7 reps or something.
Yeah, so she had to go back because she was in between, and I was like, well, Alexis Raptis' feet were in between as well. So, see, it's just, and then that's when Teresa's like, can you tell them? And I was like, as a judge, I believe you can if you no rep them. Yeah. They can ask you, or you can say more extension or more of this. You just can't cheer them on. And then we go into the last part, which is the 18-15. And again, like, Tia just crept up on that. And, like, she was on the yoke all by herself. Because when they were doing the thrusters, she wasn't ahead. It was Alexis again and Gabby Magala.
That's right.
And when she got to her bar muscle ups, man, those were so smooth.
She makes it look so pretty.
So pretty. Like, everybody has this big, huge backswing, and it just looks so...
I was like, that would have been me.
Hers was so pretty.
Effortless.
But Raptis finished 2 at 5:05. Brandon came in 3rd for the heat. But Tia just took everything away.
He was saying, watch on ESPN, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, my gosh. So you sent out on the last day? Like, you should say...
Like, a few hours?
Yeah. A few hours before. You should watch on ESPN.
I just found it.
But who were the top 5?
Yeah, for the women, obviously, it was Tia Toomey.
This is her 7th.
I know.
Championship or 7th.
And she had her baby on the screen, and it was so cute.
And she kept, like...
She had a little rogue shirt.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Touch the microphone. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to touch it. I'm not going to touch it.
She was so cute.
And Tia spoke very well about everything that's happened and
she did
about Lazar and everything. So that was nice to hear. But yeah, Tia got 1st. Gabby Magala got 2nd.
And Raptors, right?
Yep. Nope.
No, it's Rolf.
Emily Rolf got 3rd. And then Bethany got 4th and Haley got 5th. And I feel like with Bethany coming back from injuries 2 years ago, that's great for her. Haley taking a year off, amazing for her. It's also amazing for Gabby Magala and Emily Rolfe. Like, those are 2 names that are slowly climbing up too. So I feel like everybody below Tia did very well for their season. I did want to see Alexis Raptis more up there.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't, too. I know. Danielle Brandon.
She got 7th though, still pretty okay.
Yeah. It's just, sometimes when you're like, you work so hard, and if these things, like if handstand walk, running, or like things are all in your wheelhouse, but when you put them all together in a workout, doesn't make it in your wheelhouse, it's hard. But let's go into the men. So we did see, like I said, the last part of the first heat, but the second heat, Brent Fikowski had the leader jersey on. Sprague was right behind him. Dallin Pepper was right behind him. Then you had Harper. Then you had Hopper. Hapa. You had Hapa and Pat Vellner. Like, these numbers were a lot closer together than the women's side was. So in that first heat, you just saw Dallin Pepper like crush it.
He did.
And they didn't really touch on that. They were talking on Brent and they were talking about Sprague, and it was just like Dallin Pepper's like putting in work too. Again, I think I'm just like very upset with how they've represented this kid, because him and Sprague also did teens together and they competed, and it's like both of them have put in great work. You need to show how much work that they have put in.
And weren't we watching somebody where we're like, oh, I think it was Gerard.
Yeah.
And he was like caught up, and we're like, where did he come from? And it's because the camera wasn't showing.
So that was the second heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the second heat was when what was it? Brent slowly died off.
Yeah, he was tired.
Then you had Hopper and Dallin Pepper like speed up, and then all of a sudden Pat Vellner came out of nowhere, and I'm screaming at the TV, and my son comes in and goes, "Mom, use your inside voice. Stop yelling." And so I had to be like, go.
I love that.
But yeah, towards the end, you're like, okay, Pat's gonna get it. Okay, Sprague's gonna get it. Okay, Dallin's gonna get it. Oh, Hopper. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking up at the TV and it says Gerard, but they're not showing him. And then all of a sudden, they show him, and then he crosses the finish line.
I was like, what?
Yeah, I was like,
where was he?
That's not okay. And he came out of nowhere. But I was like, so it's up on, I can read that. But y'all are talking about these other two who aren't moving. Then James Sprague came in second. Samuel Quant came in third. Pepper came in fourth. And then Vellner came in fifth. Brent Fikowski didn't even make the top 10 in that second part of the workout.
I know. It was tough. Yeah.
And I thought he was going to get it because, like, his coach was talking to him. about the second half, and he's like telling him what he needs to hit. And you just like see him nod and be like, okay, I can do this. And then when you start to see him like die off, you're just like, ugh. Dude, like
he was getting no rep,
slipping away. He got no rep.
Twice,
a few of them
least,
got no rep. He got no rep on his bar muscle up and no rep on his thruster. Mm-hmm. And it was just like a couple of them, and it was just like, come on.
I always feel for them when I see them get tired, and I'm like, ugh.
And the points are so close. You are not that far ahead. Like with Tia
It's so
Toomey,
hard when you're in that moment and you're just like, my body's not responding, and I want it so bad. But you saw him when he finished. He was like on the floor for a good amount of time,
and he just like
he knew he lost it. Yeah,
because it's different. Like Tia Toomey like got so much of a buffer, but the men just don't have that kind of buffer. So for the top 5 who took it, James Sprigg won first. Dallin Pepper moved up to second. Then you had Brent Fikowski with third. Jay Happa got fourth, and my man Pant Vellner got fifth.
Staying consistent.
Yes. So I mean, sad. Past couple years, I've seen him podium. So maybe next year.
New generation, man, coming in and
taking
over.
I was proud of Happa. I'm gonna say it many times. He's being very consistent this year too. So, and he's been it since like Matt's 5th year, I think, because they thought he was gonna like be the one who could overtake Matt. And so he deserves a couple wins. Dallin Pepper definitely does. I mean, they all do. But it's also said, like, really wanted to see if Jeff Adler was gonna take it again. Or Laura Horvath.
I think that's the biggest, at least for me too. At least this is how I feel. Like if I were one of the competitors out there and I quote unquote got the second or first, I'd be like, did I really though? Because the first man, like last year's not here competing.
Yeah.
Same with the females, Laura Horvath's not here. So it's like, did I really win this, or was it just based on coincidence, that things worked out the way they did? And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing that's hard.
That's looming.
Mm-hmm. But that was the game.
But regardless, props to those who did win. It takes a lot.
It is. It takes a lot, and I feel like with this games, it was hard for everyone. Yeah. There's just something hard to get over. It's something to get back into a good mindset, and everything like that. So whether they competed or not, they all had to work through it, and we're very proud of everybody who competed, and it was awesome to watch. It was heartbreaking to watch, but yes, it was a different kind of games.
Well, thank you for everyone for allowing us a chance to share our review of the games for this year 2024, and to the family of Lazar Dukic, our hearts and prayers are with you as we kind of navigate through this really tough time.
Yes, and we'll be posting that GoFundMe link on the show notes, and also on our Instagram and our Facebook page and TikTok for anybody who wants to donate. But a big thank you to my co-host. This episode was written by us and edited by us, and a shout out to you guys for listening. Thank you so much. Music is from Sound Cloud and Uppbeatz. Our references are from CrossFit.com, NewYorkTimes.com, SwimSwam.com, and New York Post, along with us just watching the games.
That's right.
If you feel like this podcast is your swig of pre-workout, please subscribe, follow, and leave us a review. We love to read the reviews.
I do. Makes me feel like I'm doing something right.
Yes, it brings us a little bit of happiness. And remember, don't be a Karen. You always want to be a Sharon.
That's right.
And until
we meet
at the whiteboard again.
Bye.